There are moments in life when the wind changes, but not in your favor, or so it seems. Someone you once leaned on, perhaps even trusted with the deepest parts of your heart, begins to drift away. They pull back, or you pull away, though you cannot fully explain why. June arrives with its gentle bloom, and yet, in the quiet unfolding of its days, someone is removed. It is easy to call it coincidence, easier still to call it betrayal, but neither word truly fits. You were not abandoned, you were pruned. This removal was not an accident, it was a mercy in disguise. God's way with his children is never random. He is a craftsman, not a careless sculptor. If he removes a person from your life, it is not because he seeks to punish you with loneliness, but because he seeks to prepare you for something deeper, truer, and more eternal. It may be that the person he takes away is not evil, not cruel, not even disloyal, but simply not meant to follow you into the next chapter. And just as a good writer knows when to close the arc of a character, so God, the author of your life, knows when a presence that once helped now hinders. You may feel the sting of that absence, like a limb that's been cut away. There may be grief, there may be confusion, but grief is not the enemy, confusion is not the end. These are signs that something real is happening. You are being grown, and in this soul's growth, some roots must be torn up, so others may go deeper. God is not in the business of quick comfort. He is in the business of deep transformation. He will not leave you where you are because you are too dear to him to let you remain halfway healed. He will not allow distractions to dance around you forever. Sometimes those distractions wear the face of a friend. Sometimes they carry the voice of someone you love. But if they keep you from hearing the whisper of God, he will remove them. Not in anger, not in wrath, but in gentleness and justice, like a father removing a shard of glass from a child's hand, even as the child cries. The truth is, we often beg God to speak, then curse him when he answers. We ask for strength, and he sends solitude. We ask for clarity, and he sends us separation. We ask for peace, and he removes the person whose presence stirred constant unrest. Do not misread the blessing, because it arrives wrapped in loss. It is often only once the person is gone that you begin to see. The voice that had clouded your mind with doubt is now silent. The companionship that once filled the room with warmth had begun to cool your soul's fire, and now in the hush you notice it, the stirring of your own spirit again, the quiet call of God, no longer competing for your attention. This is not the end, this is the making of you. So do not grieve as those without hope. Do not run back to what was only meant to stay for a season. There is someone who stays, someone who never leaves. When God removes, it is only so he might draw nearer. When he takes one person out, it is to create space for his own presence, or for someone shaped more precisely for the path he's leading you on. And so, chosen one, when June takes something away, do not resist. Stand still. Wait. The gardener is at work, and his hands never move by accident. There are few things more unsettling than the slow unraveling of a relationship we thought was permanent. It begins subtly, calls that go unanswered, conversations that feel shallower, a shift in tone that you can't quite explain. Then one day they're gone. Not with fanfare, not always in conflict. Sometimes they just fade, like a familiar song growing quieter in the distance until you can no longer hear it. And in that silence, you begin to wonder if you did something wrong. But the truth is, you are not being punished, you are being protected. God does not make careless edits to the story of your life. When he removes someone, he does so not with cruelty, but with clarity. The departure may feel abrupt to you, but not to him. He saw what you could not. He heard conversations you never knew took place. He saw how that presence, though once a comfort, was now dulling your sense of purpose, anchoring you to a place he no longer wants you to remain. And because he loves you too much to allow you to stay tangled in what cannot grow with you, he removes. It is not easy to accept. The heart is stubborn in its attachments. It defends its loyalties fiercely. But what the heart wants is not always what the soul needs. You may mourn the absence for a time. That is natural. But in that mourning, do not miss the miracle. Something is being cleared to make space for something better. Not necessarily easier, not always more pleasurable, but better in the eternal sense. Deeper, truer, aligned with who you are becoming in the hands of God. This removal is not rejection, it is refinement. There is an illusion we all carry, that stability is found in people. We build our peace around the presence of others, forgetting how fragile that foundation is. But God, in His mercy, gently dismantles the idols we construct from human relationships. He calls us back to Himself. He reminds us that no one, no friend, no partner, no confidant can carry the weight of being your anchor. When someone exits your life by God's design, He is not taking away your safety. He is teaching you where true safety lies. And that kind of lesson only comes through loss. It is a strange blessing to be chosen, not chosen for comfort or for ease, but chosen for transformation. And transformation always requires a letting go. You cannot climb while clinging. The higher paths of faith and purpose demand lighter baggage. God knows what is too heavy for where you are going, even if you still try to hold on, and so He removes. It may be this June, as the world around you blooms, you feel something else withering, a connection fading, a door closing. Let it. Do not force it open again. What departs by divine hand must not be dragged back by human effort. If you chase after what God has released, you will only find more pain. But if you stand still, if you trust the silence, you will begin to sense the shaping of something sacred. The absence will teach you what presence never could. In the quiet that follows their leaving, listen. You may find that what remains is not emptiness, but the nearness of the one who truly sees you. You may begin to recognize your own voice again. You may finally hear God's. And in that stillness, you will understand. It was never an accident. It was an answer. The removal was not for your harm. It was for your healing. And healing, though slow, is holy. So let the person go. Let June carry them away like petals in the wind, and lift your eyes not to what is gone, but to what is coming. The story is not over. The author is still writing, and he has never wasted a single loss. When someone is removed from your life, especially without clear cause or confrontation, it can feel like the ground has shifted under your feet. You wake up confused, even a little ashamed, wondering whether this fracture is your fault, whether you failed to hold together something worth saving. But there is a deeper truth hidden beneath the ache. What has happened is not random. It is not meaningless. God does not allow anyone to exit your life without purpose, especially when He has marked you for something more. If you are chosen, you will be pruned, and pruning rarely feels like a gift while it is happening. There are relationships, attachments, and connections that may seem harmless on the surface, some even comforting. But what comforts the flesh can quietly suffocate the spirit. God sees this far before we do. He sees the small compromises you began to make, the way your attention started drifting, the subtle shifts in your thoughts, the distractions that dulled your hunger for Him. And so, when the time comes, He intervenes, not with thunder, but with silence. Not with violence, but with separation. He lets the person walk away. He lets the season close. And though it hurts, it is not punishment. It is preparation. Many times we cry out for clarity. We ask for growth, for purpose, for our calling to be revealed. But we forget that clarity often comes through subtraction. God doesn't always answer with addition. Sometimes He answers with absence. He doesn't always speak in the way we expect. Instead of giving us what we thought we needed, He takes away what was never meant to stay. And it's in that empty space where clarity rushes. The fog begins to lift. You start to see how much of your energy was spent preserving what God never asked you to carry. You begin to breathe again, slowly but truly. When God removes someone, especially in a season like this, it may not be because that person is wicked or harmful. Often they are simply not aligned with the future God is shaping for you. They were right for the version of you that was still learning, still rooted in old soil. But as He calls you to rise, some cannot come with you. And that is not cruelty, that is mercy. You must learn to release with open hands what God has touched with finality, because nothing delays your journey more than gripping what God has already let go. The removal itself is not the whole story. What matters just as much is your response. Will you chase what walked away? Will you mourn indefinitely what was never eternal? Or will you let the ache draw you deeper into the heart of the one who never leaves? This is the moment where intimacy with God becomes more than a phrase. It becomes breath, because when all else is stripped away, He remains. And when you finally see that His presence is enough, not just from the person, but from the fear that you needed them more than you needed Him. And that is the hidden miracle of it all. God does not just remove to empty, He removes to restore. What He takes, He replaces with something better, but only when your hands are open, only when your heart is quiet enough to listen. So this June, if someone is taken from your life, do not rush to fill the silence. Do not reach back. Stand still. Trust that the gardener is at work, and nothing has been cut away without reason. In time you will look back and see. What felt like a loss was the beginning of becoming. The subtraction was sacred. The absence was not abandonment. It was the whisper of grace, moving you toward what's next. There is a peculiar pain in watching someone slip out of your life, especially when it happens quietly. No dramatic goodbye, no final conversation, just a slow fading, like light retreating from a room you didn't know had grown so dim. You stand there trying to make sense of it, asking if you could have done more, said more, held on tighter. But what if the letting go wasn't your failure? What if it was God's faithfulness? You see, when God has set His hand upon your life, when He has chosen you for something higher, He will not allow attachments that hinder your purpose to remain, no matter how familiar they feel or how much comfort they've once brought. Sometimes the most merciful thing God can do is to remove someone, and it won't always be because they were a threat to your safety or a danger to your peace. Often it's far more subtle than that. They may be kind, warm, even supportive in ways. But God sees something deeper. He sees how that bond, if left unchecked, will entangle you, distract you, or hold you at a level you've outgrown. God's vision is eternal, and He makes adjustments in our lives that we would never dare to make ourselves. If He waited for our permission, we would never release what He knows we must let go of. So, instead, He simply acts, not out of frustration, but out of fierce, protective love. Of course, it never feels like love in the moment. It feels like rejection. It feels like being dropped. But that's the lie pain tells us, that anything that hurts must be against us. We are quick to label every loss as an attack and every silence as abandonment. But God is not cruel. He does not remove to destroy. He removes to refine. He subtracts to clear the path. And sometimes the only way to get your attention is through absence. If the presence of a certain person has become louder than his whisper, he will quiet it. And sometimes quiet means gone. There's a strange clarity that comes in the days that follow. Once the dust settles, you begin to see what you were blind to before. The subtle tension you kept dismissing, the unease you carried but couldn't name, the way your soul was slowly silencing its own convictions just to keep the peace. And now that they're no longer there, it's like a window has opened. You can breathe again. The sunlight returns, the thoughts become clearer. You begin to rediscover the voice of God that had been slowly drowned out. What felt like a cruel subtraction becomes the beginning of clarity. But with that clarity comes a choice. You can rush back into something simply because it was familiar, or you can stay in the stillness long enough to be changed by it. The chosen are not called to easy paths. They are called to holy ones, and holiness often requires separation. If God has taken someone from your life this June, it's not because he's forgotten you. It's because he remembers what he placed inside you, the dreams, the calling, the weight of your purpose. He knows what threatens it, even when you don't. He knows who can't go with you, even when you beg them to stay. So resist the urge to chase after what left. Do not force open a door God has shut. Instead, lean into the trust that nothing was removed by accident. This season may feel like a pruning, but every gardener knows pruning isn't punishment, it's preparation. Something deeper is coming alive in you. And before it blooms, something else had to be cleared away, not to leave you empty, but to make room for something eternal, something only God could see coming. There are times in life when God does not answer your prayers with something new, but by taking something or someone away. Not every blessing arrives as a gift wrapped in beauty. Some come disguised as loss, and this kind of blessing is rarely welcome at first. It confuses the mind, wounds the heart, and tests your trust in ways comfort never could. One day, someone who once stood close begins to feel far. A relationship shifts. A friend grows silent. A presence disappears without warning, and you're left wondering why. But when you are chosen, God does not let every person walk beside you forever. Some exits are sacred. At first, the loss may feel unbearable. You might question your worth, your discernment, even your faith. But behind the curtain of confusion is the quiet hand of a loving God. His decisions are never careless. He sees what you don't. He hears what you can't. You might think that person was essential to your journey, but God knows who must leave for you to grow. And so, without asking your permission, he begins to sever what you would have clung to forever. This is not because he delights in your sorrow. It is because he knows what your joy truly costs. He knows which relationships quietly steal your focus, drain your purpose, and dilute your identity. You see, God is not only in the business of addition, he works just as powerfully in subtraction. We often praise him for the doors he opens, but sometimes the closed ones carry just as much mercy. Especially when a person is removed from your life, it can feel like your world is breaking. But God is not breaking you, he is breaking what held you back. There are prayers you've whispered in desperation, for clarity, for purpose, for strength, and often the answer is, the removal of what numbed your spirit and veiled your vision. When God takes someone away, it is never random. It is redirection. As the days pass, the ache begins to soften, and the lesson starts to unfold. You realize the peace that was missing has returned. The confusion that followed every conversation is gone. You can hear yourself think again, and even more, you can hear God again. That is how you know it was divine, not because you stopped missing them entirely, but because their absence brought a stillness that their presence never could. This is not something you could have orchestrated on your own. You never would have chosen it. But now that it's happened, you know deep down it had to. Still, there is a moment that comes, a crossroads. You will be tempted to reach back, to fix what was already released, to chase what God had already removed. Don't. When God removes someone, it is not your task to reverse it. He does not close doors to confuse you. He closes them to protect the person you are becoming. Every calling comes with cost. Every elevation comes with separation. If someone has been taken from your life this June, trust that it is because they could not go with you into July. Not because they were bad, not because you failed, but because their chapter in your story has closed. And so, here you stand, lighter, not always by choice but by design. And in that lightness, something new can grow. This is the season to stop mourning what God has moved. This is the time to lift your eyes and realize the subtraction was preparation. The silence is sacred. The removal is making space for deeper calling, truer connection, and the kind of intimacy with God that only emerges when the noise is gone. Trust the loss. Honor the lesson. What felt like the end is, in truth, the gentle beginning of something eternal.